Listen, buddy, if you don't stop making that noise, I'm going to throw this wrench at whatever passes for your head, Donovan said, pointing the greasy tool at the hovering alien. He didn't actually mean it, of course, but 4 hours of that high-pitched whirring sound was wearing on his last nerve. The alien, a roughly humanoid creature with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms, responded by emitting another series of clicks and whistles. The translator device pinned to what Donovan assumed was its chest produced a flat, robotic voice. "Human repair technician, my vessel requires immediate attention. The Galactic Consortium will not be pleased with delays." Donovan rolled his eyes and slid back under the alien craft. "Yeah, well, the Galactic Consortium can kiss my ass. You crashed in my cornfield at 3 in the morning, demanded I fix your ship, and now you're hovering over me like some anxious blue helicopter parent. Give me some space, will ya? Just another Tuesday in rural Montana." Or at least that's what Donovan's life had become since the official first contact announcement 3 years ago. The government had finally admitted what conspiracy theorists had been claiming for decades. Aliens were real, and they'd been secretly observing Earth since the 1960s. What they hadn't mentioned was that these supposedly advanced beings had a remarkable tendency to crash their ships in inconvenient places and expect the nearest human to fix them. The alien, Donovan had managed to pronounce his actual name, Zulvex, after several attempts, moved back about 2 feet, which was apparently as much personal space as Donovan was going to get. "Your primitive technology should not be compatible with my vessel's propulsion system," Zulvex said, all 4 arms gesticulating wildly. "Yet you have repaired 3 critical components already. This defies all consortium assessments of human technological capabilities." Donovan grunted as he reconnected what appeared to be the alien equivalent of a fuel line. "Yeah, well, your consortium clearly never met a farm boy with 30 years of fixing broken-down tractors, combines, and pretty much anything with an engine. Metal is metal, buddy. Fluid dynamics are fluid dynamics. Physics doesn't change just because you're from... where was it again? Proxima Centauri B, 4th quadrant, 11th sector, residential district." Yeah, space suburbs, got it," Donovan interrupted. He wasn't actually being fair. Zulvex's home sounded fascinating, but right now he needed to concentrate. The component he was working on was tricky, containing what looked like crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light. Probably the alien equivalent of a circuit board, but organic somehow. The funny thing was, it wasn't all that different from the integrated circuitry in the newer John Deere models. Just wetter. And occasionally it seemed to breathe, which was disconcerting but manageable. "Your species continues to confound consortium expectations," Zulvex continued, hovering closer again despite Donovan's earlier warning. "The preliminary assessment indicated humans would be suitable only for manual labor and entertainment purposes within the galactic economy." Donovan slid out from under the ship, his face smeared with grease and a viscous blue fluid that he hoped wasn't toxic. "Entertainment purposes? What, like zoo exhibits?" Zulvex's body rippled in what might have been the alien equivalent of a shrug. "Reality programming is quite popular. Your species is remarkably prone to emotional outbursts and irrational decision-making. Very entertaining. Glad we amuse you," Donovan muttered, grabbing a rag to wipe his hands. "Look, I've patched up the propulsion system and fixed that weird organic circuit thing. Your ship should fly now, but I wouldn't push it past light speed. Whatever you hit on the way down scrambled your, dimensional fold capacitor." He was totally making up the terminology, but it sounded right. Zulvex's upper body expanded slightly. "Impossible. You cannot possibly understand the principles of dimensional folding with your limited education and technology." Donovan shrugged. "Don't need to understand it completely to see it's busted. Look, see this crack here?" He pointed to a fracture in what appeared to be a glass-like orb nestled in the center of the engine. "That's not supposed to be there, right? And these crystal filaments are supposed to connect to that pulsing membrane over there. But they've been severed." Zulvex's eyes, all 6 of them, widened significantly. "Your observational skills are... unexpected." "Yeah, well, when you've spent your life keeping old equipment running with baling wire and ingenuity, you develop an eye for this stuff." Donovan stood up and stretched his back. "You should be good to go now, but like I said, stick to sublight travel until you can get to a proper space garage or whatever you folks have." Zulvex remained hovering in place, all 6 eyes blinking in an unsynchronized pattern that made Donovan slightly nauseous to watch. "There is a problem," the alien finally said. Donovan sighed. "Of course there is. The consortium protocols are quite clear. When a pre-integration species demonstrates technological aptitude beyond their development category, immediate reporting is required." "Pre-integration? What the hell does that mean?" Zulvek's translator emitted a series of beeps before continuing. Your planet has been classified as Category 7B, limited technological potential, suitable for resource extraction and cultural observation only. Integration into the Galactic Consortium is scheduled for approximately 300 of your Earth years, once your species has sufficiently advanced. Donovan wiped more blue fluid from his face. Let me get this straight. You crash land on my property, I fix your supposedly advanced ship with nothing but farm tools and common sense, and now you're telling me I've… what? Violated some cosmic timetable? Precisely. Zulvek's body shifted colors slightly, taking on a purplish hue that Donovan assumed indicated stress or anxiety. I am required to report this anomaly. The consortium will likely dispatch an assessment team. Great, Donovan muttered. Just what I need, space bureaucrats. Zulvek's translator emitted a sound that might have been a laugh. You misunderstand, human. This is not a trivial matter. Your demonstration of advanced technological intuition could result in your planet's reassessment. The consequences could be significant. Something in the alien's tone made Donovan pause. Significant how, exactly? There are factions within the consortium that advocate for more expedient methods of resource acquisition from promising worlds. Zulvek's color shifted again, darker now. They might view your abilities as evidence that humanity could become a competitive threat if allowed to develop naturally. Donovan stared at the alien, the wrench in his hand suddenly feeling very inadequate. Are you telling me that because I fixed your ship, Earth might be in danger? Not Earth, Zulvek's clarified. Just certain specimens that demonstrate unexpected capabilities. The extraction directive permits removal of anomalous individuals for study. Removal? Donovan didn't like the sound of that at all. It is considered an honor, Zulvek's continued, oblivious to Donovan's growing concern. Selected specimens are preserved in optimal conditions for extensive research. Preserved? As in… The study process requires complete cellular preservation, of course. The neural patterns are maintained for simulation purposes, while the physical form is subjected to comprehensive analysis. Donovan took a step back. You're talking about dissection, about taking people, taking me, and cutting me open to see what makes me tick. Zulvek's color rippled again. Your simplistic description lacks the elegant precision of the actual process, but essentially, yes. Well, that's just fantastic. Donovan looked around his workshop, suddenly seeing potential weapons everywhere. Not that they'd do much good against whatever technology Zulvek's and his kind possessed. But he wasn't going down without a fight. But then a thought occurred to him. Wait a minute. You're required to report this, right? You haven't done that yet? Correct. Consortium protocols require secure communication channels for anomaly reporting. My ship's communication array was damaged in the landing, which I just fixed for you, Donovan said flatly. Yes, your unexpected aptitude has now provided me the means to report your unexpected aptitude. There is elegant symmetry in this, is there not? Hilarious, Donovan muttered. His mind was racing now. And if your communication array were to, say, remain damaged? Zulvek's color shifted rapidly through several hues. That would be a serious violation of consortium protocol. I would be unable to report the anomaly until reaching a consortium outpost. And where's the nearest outpost? The monitoring station on your moon. Donovan blinked. There's an alien outpost on our moon? Obviously. How else would we monitor your development? The dark side conceals our presence quite effectively. Of course, Donovan said, trying to process this new information. And how long would it take you to reach this outpost with a damaged communication array? Zulvek's seemed to consider this. Without dimensional folding capabilities. Approximately 72 of your hours at maximum sublight speed. 72 hours. 3 days. That wasn't much time, but it was something. I see, Donovan said, casually reaching for a nearby screwdriver. Well, before you go, I should probably just check that communication array one more time. Make sure it's properly calibrated for, human atmosphere interference. Zulvek's hovered closer. Your concern is noted but unnecessary. The array functions at 97.3% efficiency after your repairs. Better make it 100%, Donovan insisted, moving toward the ship. Wouldn't want you to have any problems on your way to the moon. The alien hesitated, then drifted aside. Your dedication to thoroughness is admirable, though unexpected in a Category 7B species. We're just full of surprises, Donovan muttered as he climbed up onto the sleek hull of the craft. The communication array was obvious, a dish-like apparatus on top of the ship, now glowing with a soft blue light after his repairs. It took him approximately 3 seconds to accidentally smash the delicate components with his screwdriver. Oops, he said, turning to Zulvex with his best innocent expression. Would you look at that? Seems like I hit something I shouldn't have. Clumsy human fingers, you know? Zulvex's entire body pulsed with a deep red color. You have deliberately sabotaged my vessel. No. Just a little mistake. These things happen when you let primitive species mess with advanced technology. Donovan climbed down from the ship, casually pocketing a small crystal component from the array. Insurance. Zulvex was hovering frantically now, all four arms moving in agitated patterns. This is an outrage, a deliberate violation of interspecies cooperation protocols. Look on the bright side, Donovan said, wiping his hands on his jeans. Now you have a legitimate excuse for not reporting this anomaly right away. You can just say your ship was damaged in the crash and you had to limp back to the moon base for repairs. The alien's color gradually shifted from angry red back to its normal blue. Your reasoning is not without merit. The consortium values resource efficiency. A direct return to the monitoring station would be the logical course of action now. Exactly, Donovan agreed, relieved that Zulvex seemed to be buying it. And by the time you get there, who knows? Maybe you'll realize that one human being able to fix a ship isn't really that big of a deal. Not worth, preserving anybody over. Zulvex's body rippled in what might have been consideration. Perhaps. Though I must note that your strategic thinking further demonstrates capabilities beyond your species' development category. Or maybe your consortium just underestimated us, Donovan suggested. Wouldn't be the first time visitors from elsewhere made that mistake. An intriguing hypothesis, Zulvex admitted. It shall be considered during my journey. The alien moved toward the ship, then paused. You understand that regardless of my personal assessment, protocol dictates that I must report this encounter upon reaching the monitoring station. Donovan nodded. I understand. But maybe, just maybe, you could emphasize in your report that humans might be more valuable as allies than as specimens. Zulvex's translator emitted a series of clicks before responding. Such advocacy would be unusual. But these are unusual circumstances. With that cryptic statement, the alien entered the craft. Donovan stepped back as the ship hummed to life, the repairs he'd made clearly functioning well enough for takeoff. The sleek vessel rose smoothly from his workshop floor, hovering for a moment before gliding out through the large barn doors into the pre-dawn sky. As the alien ship disappeared into the clouds, Donovan realized he was still holding the crystal component from the communication array. He turned it over in his hand, watching as it pulsed with an inner light. 72 hours, he muttered to himself. Not much time to save the world. Donovan didn't sleep that night. How could he? He had effectively declared war on an intergalactic civilization armed with nothing but a stolen alien crystal and a toolbox full of wrenches. By dawn, he had made exactly 2 phone calls. The first was to his brother-in-law Roger, who worked for the Department of Defense and had always struck Donovan as being either paranoid or prescient, depending on how you looked at it. The second was to Dr. Eliza Wells, an old friend from high school who now worked for NASA's xenobiology department. Neither conversation had gone particularly well. Let me get this straight, Roger had said after Donovan explained the situation. You fixed an alien spaceship, found out Earth is basically a future alien mining colony, and then sabotaged the ship to buy us time before the alien reports that you're too smart for our own good? That about covers it, Donovan had confirmed. And you expect me to what? Call the president? Tell the Joint Chiefs that we need to prepare for an alien invasion because my sister's ex-husband had a close encounter in his barn? We're divorced, not dead, Donovan had muttered. And yes, that's exactly what I expect you to do. Roger had promised to make some calls, but Donovan wasn't holding his breath. Dr. Wells' response hadn't been much more encouraging. Donovan, do you have any idea how many alien encounter reports we get every week? She had asked, her voice heavy with skepticism even over the phone. This isn't a report, Eliza. This happened. I have proof. He had looked down at the crystal in his hand, still pulsing with that eerie light. What kind of proof? A component from their communication array. It's like nothing on Earth. That had gotten her attention, at least. She had agreed to drive out to his farm that afternoon. Now, as the sun crested the horizon, Donovan stood on his porch, nursing a cup of coffee and wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. What if Zulvex decided to come back with friends before heading to the moon base? What if the alien reported the incident via some backup communication system Donovan didn't know about? What if he had just put a target on humanity's back? The sound of tires on gravel interrupted his thoughts. A cloud of dust rose from his long driveway as a vehicle approached. Not Eliza's sensible sedan, but a black SUV with government plates. Donovan set down his coffee cup. Well, that was fast. The SUV pulled up in front of his house, and two men in suits stepped out. They looked exactly like the government agents in every bad sci-fi movie Donovan had ever seen. Dark suits, sunglasses, expressionless faces. The only thing missing was the neuralizer from Men in Black. "Mr. Donovan Fisher?" the taller of the two called out. "Depends who's asking," Donovan replied, not moving from his porch. The men approached, and the taller one reached into his jacket. Donovan tensed, but the man merely pulled out an ID badge. "Agent Wilson, Department of Defense, Special Projects Division. This is Agent Lee. We understand you had a visitor last night." Donovan stared at them. "Roger actually came through," he muttered, genuinely surprised. "Your brother-in-law has high security clearance, Mr. Fisher. When he makes a call, certain people listen." Agent Wilson pocketed his ID. "May we come inside? Do I have a choice?" "Of course." Agent Lee spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly gentle. "We're here to help, Mr. Fisher, but I think we'd all prefer this conversation take place somewhere private." Donovan considered his options, which were admittedly limited. With a sigh, he pushed open his screen door. "Come on in, but wipe your feet. Government agent or not, I don't want your fancy city shoes tracking dirt all over my floor." The agents exchanged glances but dutifully wiped their shoes before entering. Donovan's living room was sparsely furnished. A worn leather couch, a recliner that had seen better days, and a coffee table covered in old farming magazines and equipment catalogs. He hadn't really bothered to redecorate after the divorce. What was the point? "Nice place," Agent Lee said, in a tone that suggested he actually meant it. "It's home," Donovan replied with a shrug. "So what now? Are you going to tell me it was all a weather balloon? Swamp gas? Mass hysteria?" Agent Wilson's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "No, Mr. Fisher. We're well past that stage of denial. The government has been aware of extraterrestrial visitors for quite some time. Since the 1950s, right? Roswell and all that?" "Actually, since 1897. Agent Lee said casually. "The Aurora, Texas incident was the first confirmed contact, though it was successfully covered up at the time." Donovan blinked. "Seriously?" "The point is," Agent Wilson continued, shooting his partner a look, "we're not here to deny your experience or discredit you. We're here because what you've reported represents a significant escalation in our relationship with extraterrestrial entities." "Relationship? You mean the one where they see us as future lab rats and mining equipment?" Agent Wilson cleared his throat. "Our understanding of the Galactic Consortium has been limited until now. We've been aware of their observation posts, but direct interactions have been minimal and carefully controlled." "Wait," Donovan held up a hand. "You knew about the moon base?" "Of course," Agent Lee said. "We've known since Apollo 8. Why do you think we stopped going to the moon after Apollo 17? The public story about budget cuts was convenient, but the truth is we were politely but firmly asked to stay away." Donovan sank into his recliner. "And you just agreed? Abandoned the moon because some alien bureaucrats told you to?" "At the time, we didn't have much choice," Agent Wilson said. "The technological gap was substantial, and we were in the middle of the Cold War. The last thing anyone wanted was for Soviet cosmonauts to make contact and potentially gain access to advanced alien technology. So instead nobody got it," Donovan muttered. "Precisely. A stalemate was deemed the safest option. Meanwhile, we've been monitoring their monitoring of us." Donovan's head was starting to hurt. "And in all this time you never thought to mention to the public that, oh, by the way, aliens are real and they're watching us from the moon?" The agents exchanged another look. "The decision to maintain secrecy was made at the highest levels," Agent Lee explained. "The concern was that public knowledge might lead to panic, religious crises, economic instability." Yeah, I've seen the movies," Donovan interrupted. "So what's different now? Why are you sitting in my living room instead of whisking me away to some black site for interrogation?" Agent Wilson leaned forward. "Because according to your brother-in-law, you've learned something critical that we didn't know. Something about how the consortium categorizes Earth, and about their potential future plans for us." Donovan nodded slowly. "Category 7B, limited technological potential, suitable for resource extraction and cultural observation only. That's what Zulvex called us." "Zulvex?" "The alien. I managed to pronounce his actual name eventually." Agent Wilson made a note on a small pad he'd pulled from his pocket. "And he indicated that humans showing unexpected technological aptitude might be removed for study?" "Preserved," Donovan corrected. "That was the word the translator used. Preserved for study, which apparently involves dissection and some kind of neural pattern extraction." Agent Lee's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing genuine alarm. "This is concerning. Previous interactions gave no indication of such intentions." Maybe you didn't scare them before, Donovan suggested. Maybe fixing an alien ship with nothing but farm tools set off some kind of alarm bell. Perhaps, Agent Wilson conceded. But it's equally possible that this Zul Vex was exaggerating the consequences to manipulate you. Aliens have been known to use intimidation tactics when dealing with isolated human contacts. Donovan reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal component. Well, whatever the truth is, I bought us some time. Zulvex can't report anything until he reaches the moon base, and that'll take him about 3 days at sublight speed. Both agents stared at the pulsing crystal in Donovan's palm. You removed a component from the alien vessel? Agent Lee asked, his voice hushed. Seemed like good insurance, Donovan said with a shrug. Plus, I figured your scientist types might want to take a look at it. Agent Wilson reached for the crystal, then hesitated. May I? Donovan handed it over. Be my guest. Just don't press anything that looks like a button. I've had enough excitement for 1 week. Wilson examined the crystal carefully, turning it over in his hands. This is remarkable. The energy signature is unlike anything in our current databases. How would you know that just by looking at it? Donovan asked skeptically. Wilson smiled faintly and tapped his sunglasses. These aren't just for the intimidation factor, Mr. Fisher. Advanced scanning technology. Of course they are, Donovan muttered. So what happens now? You take the crystal, I never see you again, and in 3 days we all find out if the aliens decide to come harvest me for my brain? Not quite, Agent Lee said. We'd like you to come with us, actually. Come with you where exactly? To a secure facility where you can brief our scientists on everything you learned about the alien technology. The more we understand, the better prepared we'll be for whatever comes next. Donovan looked between the two agents. And if I say no? Wilson handed the crystal back. Then we leave, and you take your chances when the consortium sends whatever assessment team your alien friend mentioned. But I don't recommend that option. Donovan turned the crystal over in his hand, watching the light pulse within. 3 days. 72 hours to convince a galactic civilization that humans weren't just future lab specimens or mining equipment. Let me pack a bag, he said finally. The secure facility turned out to be an underground complex beneath an unassuming office building in Denver. Donovan had expected something more dramatic, Area 51 perhaps, or at least a military base. But Agent Lee had explained that keeping their extraterrestrial research program hidden in plain sight was part of their security protocol. The best place to hide is where no one would think to look, he'd said, as they descended in an elevator that required both retinal and voice recognition to operate. Now, 24 hours after leaving his farm, Donovan found himself in a sterile white room, surrounded by scientists in lab coats who were examining the alien crystal as if it were the Holy Grail. Which, in a way, it was. The first confirmed piece of extraterrestrial technology that hadn't been carefully planted for humans to discover. Dr. Eliza Wells was among them, having been flown in overnight after Donovan had insisted on having at least one familiar face present. She looked exactly as he remembered from their high school days. Sharp-eyed, no nonsense, with her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. You always did have a knack for finding trouble, she'd said upon seeing him. But there had been a gleam of excitement in her eyes that belied her disapproving tone. Now she approached him with a tablet in hand, her expression serious. The crystal is amazing, Donovan. It appears to be some kind of organic synthetic hybrid, a technology that interfaces directly with biological systems. I figured as much, he replied. The ship had lots of components like that. Parts that seemed to breathe, circuitry that pulsed like it had a heartbeat. Eliza nodded eagerly. Exactly. It's like they've found a way to grow technology instead of manufacturing it. The implications are enormous. That's fascinating and all, Donovan said. But does it help us with our more immediate problem? You know, the one where advanced aliens might be coming to dissect me in... He checked his watch. About 48 hours? Eliza's excitement dimmed slightly. We're working on that. The problem is, we still don't know enough about the consortium's actual intentions or capabilities. Your encounter with Zulvex is the most direct information we've ever received, but it's still just one data point. Speaking of data points, a new voice interjected. We may have another one. Donovan turned to see a tall woman in a military uniform approaching. The insignia identified her as a general, though Donovan wasn't familiar enough with military rankings to know which branch. General Alexander, Eliza said, straightening slightly. This is Donovan Fisher, the civilian who... I know who he is, the general interrupted. The man who might have started an interstellar incident by hitting an alien ship with a screwdriver. Despite her words, there was a hint of amusement in her tone. In my defense, Donovan said, the alien was planning to report me for being too smart, which apparently is a dissection-worthy offense in space. So I've been told. The general turned to address the room at large. We've detected activity at the lunar observation post. 3 vessels have departed and appear to be on a trajectory toward Earth. The room went silent. 3 vessels? Eliza finally asked. Are you certain? Our deep space monitoring station confirmed it 15 minutes ago, the general replied. They're moving at sublight speed and should reach Earth in approximately 12 hours. 12 hours? Donovan repeated. That's not right. Zulvex said it would take him 72 hours to reach the moon base. Apparently, your alien friend decided to take a shortcut, the general said grimly. Or he had communication capabilities you weren't aware of. Donovan ran a hand through his hair. This is bad. This is very, very bad. Not necessarily, Eliza interjected. If they were coming with hostile intent, wouldn't they send more than 3 ships? Unless these are just the advance team, someone else suggested. Here to collect the specimen for study. Donovan didn't appreciate being referred to as a specimen, but he had to admit the theory made sense. So what's the plan? Hide me in a bunker somewhere while you try to negotiate with them? General Alexander shook her head. Hiding you would only postpone the inevitable and potentially make things worse. If the consortium is as advanced as we believe, they could probably find you regardless of where we put you. So what then? You're just going to hand me over? Of course not, Eliza said firmly. No one's being handed over to anyone. The general nodded in agreement. Dr. Wells is right. We need to demonstrate that humanity as a whole is more valuable as a potential ally than as a resource to be exploited. And to do that, we need to show them something they don't expect. Like what? Donovan asked skeptically. Our charming personalities? Like our ability to understand and adapt their technology, Eliza said, her eyes lighting up as she caught on to the general's thinking. Donovan, you said you repaired multiple components on the alien ship, right? Not just the communication array? Yeah, the propulsion system, that weird organic circuit thing, and a few other bits and pieces. And you did it with ordinary tools and intuitive understanding of the underlying principles, correct? Donovan shrugged. I mean, yeah, metal is metal. Fluid dynamics are fluid dynamics. The materials were different, but the basic engineering concepts seemed pretty universal. Eliza turned to the general excitedly. That's it! That's our angle. The consortium has obviously been observing our technological development from afar, but they've never seen humans actually interact with their technology up close. Except for Zulvex, Donovan pointed out. Exactly. And how did he react? He was surprised. He said you defied their assessments of human capabilities. The general nodded slowly. So you're suggesting we demonstrate that humans as a species have more potential than they've given us credit for? That we're not just Category 7B? Precisely, Eliza confirmed. And we have just the thing to help us make that point. She gestured to the crystal, still being examined by the other scientists. The communication component? Donovan asked. Not just a component, Eliza corrected. According to our analysis, this crystal is actually a complete subspace transmitter. Essentially, it's a faster-than-light communication device that can bypass normal space-time limitations. Donovan stared at the innocuous-looking crystal. You're telling me I've been carrying around the alien equivalent of a quantum cell phone in my pocket? Crude analogy, but essentially correct, Eliza said with a smile. And if we can figure out how to activate it, we could potentially communicate directly with the consortium, the general finished. Bypass the assessment team entirely and make our case to their leadership. And how exactly do we do that? Donovan asked. It's not like it comes with an instruction manual. Eliza's smile widened. Actually, it might. The crystal contains data, lots of it. We've only begun to scratch the surface, but there appear to be operational protocols embedded in its structure. So you're saying we might be able to call the aliens before they get here? Donovan was skeptical but intrigued. With your help, yes, Eliza said. You've already demonstrated an intuitive understanding of their technology. We need that intuition now more than ever. Donovan looked at the crystal, then at the expectant faces around him. No pressure or anything. The general checked her watch. We have 11 hours and 43 minutes before those ships reach Earth. I suggest you get started. 10 hours later, Donovan's eyes were burning from staring at holographic projections of the crystal's internal structure. The scientists had developed a way to visualize the data within it, resulting in complex, three-dimensional patterns that shifted and changed as they probed deeper. It's like trying to read a book where the letters rearrange themselves every time you turn the page, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Eliza, who had been working alongside him the entire time, nodded in agreement. The data structure is adaptive. It responds to our attempts to access it by restructuring itself. Almost like it's alive. Or like it has built-in security protocols, Donovan suggested. Which makes sense. You wouldn't want just anyone to be able to use your FTL phone to make interstellar calls. True, but we've made progress. Look here. Eliza pointed to a recurring pattern in the holographic display. This sequence appears consistently regardless of how the rest of the data restructures. It could be a baseline operational command. Donovan studied the pattern. It reminded him of the way the crystal had pulsed in his hand when he first removed it from Zulvex's ship. What if it's not responding to our technological probes because it's not designed to? Eliza frowned. What do you mean? Zulvex said his ship had components that interfaced with biological systems, right? What if this crystal is meant to be activated by direct contact, not by machines? You're suggesting some kind of biometric interface? Something like that, yeah. Donovan reached for the crystal, which was currently suspended in a scanning field. Wait, Eliza said, grabbing his arm. We don't know what direct contact might do. It could be dangerous. Zulvex was handling these crystals all over his ship, Donovan pointed out. And I touched this one already, remember? I carried it in my pocket for hours. Yes, but you weren't trying to activate it then. Donovan considered this, then shrugged. Well, we're running out of time and we're out of ideas. Sometimes you've got to take a chance. Before Eliza could protest further, he reached through the scanning field and grasped the crystal. Nothing happened. Well, that was anticlimactic, he muttered. And then the crystal began to pulse, its inner light growing brighter and more regular. The pulsing matched the pattern they'd identified in the holographic display. It's responding to you, Eliza whispered, her scientific skepticism momentarily forgotten in the face of what could only be described as magic. The crystal's light continued to intensify until it was almost painful to look at. Then, abruptly, it projected a three-dimensional image into the air above Donovan's palm, a complex rotating symbol that resembled nothing so much as a galaxy viewed from above. What is that? Eliza breathed. I think, Donovan said slowly, it's the consortium logo. The projected image shifted, forming what appeared to be a series of intricate symbols arranged in concentric rings. I think it's some kind of interface, Donovan said, carefully turning the crystal to examine the projection from different angles. Like a menu system. Eliza was already grabbing a tablet to record the images. Can you interact with it somehow? Maybe try touching one of the symbols? Donovan hesitated, then cautiously extended his finger toward one of the glowing symbols, a spiral pattern that seemed to pulse more brightly than the others. As his finger passed through the holographic projection, the spiral expanded, filling the air with new symbols. It's working! Eliza exclaimed, her professional demeanor momentarily forgotten in her excitement. The new symbols rearranged themselves into what looked like a control panel, complete with what Donovan could only assume were buttons and sliders. Now what? He muttered, more to himself than to Eliza. As if in response to his question, one of the holographic buttons pulsed brightly. Instinctively, Donovan reached out and touched it. The crystal vibrated in his palm, and suddenly the air was filled with a familiar series of clicks and whistles, the same sounds Zulvex had made before his translator converted them to English. Is it trying to communicate? Eliza whispered. Before Donovan could respond, a new voice filled the room. Not the flat, robotic tone of Zulvex's translator, but a rich, melodious sound that somehow managed to convey meaning despite using no recognizable language. Universal Translation Protocol activated, the voice announced in perfect English. Linguistic adaptation complete. This is Consortium Communication Node 7382 Alpha. Please identify authorization parameters. Donovan and Eliza exchanged startled glances. Donovan began eloquently. I'm Donovan Fisher, human, from Earth. I borrowed this communication device from a consortium vessel that crash-landed on my property. There was a pause, during which the crystal pulsed rapidly. Unauthorized access detected, the voice finally replied. Security protocols initiated. Transmitting location coordinates to nearest consortium enforcement vessels. Wait, Donovan said quickly. We're not trying to hack your system or whatever. We're trying to establish communication before your enforcement vessels arrive. This is important. Another pause, longer this time. Clarify purpose of attempted communication. Donovan took a deep breath. One of your observers, the one whose ship crashed on my property, told me that Earth has been classified as Category 7B, limited technological potential. He also said that because I was able to repair his ship, I might be taken for study. We're hoping to discuss this situation with consortium leadership before anyone starts preserving specimens. The crystal's pulsing slowed to a steady rhythm. Processing request. Unusual protocol violation detected. Stand by for security assessment. Eliza moved closer, her eyes wide. It's actually working. You're talking to their network! Yeah, but I don't think the customer service rep is too happy about my call, Donovan whispered back. The crystal suddenly projected a new image, a three-dimensional scan that swept over Donovan from head to toe, bathing him in pale blue light. Biological scan complete, the voice announced. Species identification, human. Technological aptitude assessment in progress. Technological aptitude, Donovan repeated. What are you... He broke off as the crystal grew hot in his hand. Not painfully so, but warm enough to be concerning. Instinctively, he tried to drop it, only to find that he couldn't open his fingers. The crystal seemed to be fused to his palm. Donovan? Eliza's voice was sharp with concern. What's happening? I don't know, he said through gritted teeth. But I can't let go of this thing. The crystal's light intensified, and Donovan felt a strange sensation, as if something was rifling through his memories, focusing particularly on his years of mechanical work. Flashes of engines he'd repaired, machines he'd built, problems he'd solved all flickered through his mind like a fast-forwarded film. Just as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. The crystal cooled and detached from his palm, though it continued to hover just above his open hand. Assessment complete, the voice announced. Preliminary findings indicate significant discrepancy between observed technological capabilities and Category 7B classification parameters. Yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell you, Donovan said, fighting to keep his voice steady despite the violation he'd just experienced. We're a bit more advanced than your consortium seems to think. Correction, the voice replied. Individual technological intuition exceeds classification parameters. Species-wide assessment remains valid based on current developmental trajectory. Eliza stepped forward. That's not true. Donovan isn't an anomaly. Humans have always been inventive and adaptable. We've gone from horse-drawn carriages to space exploration in less than 2 centuries. Historical development rate noted, the voice acknowledged. However, current technological stagnation indicates plateau effect. Resource allocation inefficiencies and information hoarding behaviors suggest developmental ceiling has been reached. That's not fair, Donovan protested. We're still learning, still growing. Just because we haven't mastered interstellar travel doesn't mean we've hit a ceiling. Evidence suggests otherwise, the voice responded, emotionless yet somehow smug. 97% of human technological advancement in the past 50 years has been iterative rather than innovative. Genuine paradigm shifts have decreased by a factor of... Maybe that's because we're being watched and classified by aliens who've already decided our future. Donovan interrupted, his frustration boiling over. Has it occurred to your consortium that your observation might be skewing the results? That knowing what's possible might be more important than having the resources to do it? The crystal pulsed rapidly, and for a moment Donovan feared he'd angered whatever intelligence was on the other end of this strange communication. Interesting hypothesis, the voice finally said. Requires further analysis. Stand by. Eliza touched Donovan's arm. I think you struck a nerve, if they have nerves. Let's hope so, he murmured. We need to change their minds about us, and we're running out of time. As if on cue, an alarm began to sound throughout the facility. Moments later, General Alexander burst into the room, her expression grim. The alien vessels have accelerated, she announced without preamble. They'll reach Earth within the hour. An hour? Eliza repeated. How is that possible? They've engaged some kind of faster-than-light drive, the general explained. Our tracking systems can barely keep up. Donovan looked down at the crystal, still hovering above his palm. I think our call might have prompted them to hurry. Communication link remains active, the voice from the crystal suddenly announced. Request for clarification. You suggest consortium observation protocols may be inhibiting natural species development? Yes, exactly, Donovan said quickly, seizing the opportunity. By classifying us and deciding our potential in advance, you're not seeing what we could become. You're only seeing what you expect to see. This argument lacks supporting evidence, the voice replied. Consortium observation is passive and non-interventional by design. Is it? Donovan challenged. What about your moon base? What about turning back our Apollo missions? What about classifying us as suitable only for resource extraction and cultural observation? That doesn't sound passive to me. The crystal's pulsing changed rhythm, becoming more erratic. These are established protocols for pre-integration species protection. Protection? Donovan scoffed. Or control. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like you've decided Earth's fate without giving us a fair chance to determine our own. Another long pause, during which the crystal's light dimmed, then brightened again. Your perspective has not been previously considered, the voice finally admitted. Consortium classification protocols have remained unchanged for 37,000 standard cycles. The possibility of observational influence on developmental trajectories has not been factored into assessment criteria. Eliza and the General exchanged hopeful glances, but Donovan wasn't ready to celebrate yet. So what happens now? He asked. Your enforcement vessels are less than an hour away. Are they still coming to preserve me for study? Negative, the voice replied. Enforcement protocol has been modified. The vessels are now tasked with conducting a comprehensive reassessment of human technological potential. And what does that entail exactly? General Alexander asked, speaking directly to the crystal for the first time. Standard reassessment procedures include technology transfer tests, adaptive problem-solving evaluations, and civilization trajectory projections. The voice explained. Results will determine new classification status and integration timeline. Technology transfer tests? Donovan repeated uneasily. That sounds suspiciously like let's see how quickly they can reverse engineer our stuff so we know how big a threat they might become. The crystal pulsed twice, quickly. Your interpretation is not entirely inaccurate. Great, Donovan muttered. Out of the dissection pan, into the alien tech exam fire. This is actually good news, Eliza insisted. They're giving us a chance to prove ourselves instead of just collecting you for study. I agree, the General said. And we need to prepare. If they're testing our technological adaptability, we should gather our best scientists and engineers. About that, Donovan said, looking at the crystal. How exactly is this test going to work? Are your ships landing? Setting up some kind of space game show? Enforcement vessels will establish geosynchronous orbit, the voice replied. Assessment team will transfer to surface location for direct evaluation. Transfer to where exactly? The General asked sharply. The crystal projected a new image. A topographical map showing a familiar rural area with a small farm at its center. My place? Donovan said incredulously. They're coming to my farm? Initial contact location provides continuity parameters for assessment validity, the voice explained, as if this were perfectly reasonable. General Alexander was already pulling out her phone. We need to secure that area immediately. Dr. Wells, gather your team and whatever equipment you can transport. Mr. Fisher, she turned to Donovan. It seems you're going home. Donovan stood on his front porch, watching as a small army of scientists, military personnel, and government agents transformed his modest farm into something resembling a cross between a research facility and a military base. Equipment vans lined his driveway, satellite dishes had sprouted like mushrooms in his cornfield, and a perimeter of discreet but heavily armed soldiers surrounded the property. All this, and still no sign of the alien vessels that were supposedly in orbit directly above them. Feeling nervous? Eliza asked, joining him on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. Donovan accepted one gratefully. Terrified would be more accurate. The fate of humanity rests on how well we perform in an alien pop quiz, and for some reason, I'm supposed to be involved. You're the one who fixed their ship, Eliza reminded him. You've already demonstrated an intuitive understanding of their technology that the rest of us haven't had the opportunity to develop. Lucky me, Donovan muttered, taking a sip of coffee. The crystal, which hadn't left his side since their initial communication, suddenly pulsed brightly from its place on the porch railing where he'd set it. Enforcement vessels have achieved optimal positioning, the now familiar voice announced. Assessment team preparing for surface transfer. Recommended preparation, clear central location with minimum 50-meter radius. Donovan looked out at his crowded farmyard. General? We need to move everyone back. Way back. General Alexander, who had been conferring with a group of officers near one of the equipment vans, looked up sharply. They're coming now? Looks that way, Donovan confirmed, gesturing to the pulsing crystal. The general immediately began barking orders, and the yard quickly cleared as people retreated to the perimeter. Within minutes, a large empty circle had formed in front of Donovan's barn, the same barn where he'd repaired Zolvex's ship just 3 days ago. What happens now? Eliza asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As if in answer, the air in the center of the cleared space began to shimmer, like heat rising from asphalt on a summer day. The shimmering intensified, taking on a bluish tinge, until suddenly, holy shit, Donovan breathed. 3 vessels had appeared out of nowhere. Not massive ships like Donovan had imagined, but sleek black vehicles about the size of luxury cars. They hovered silently a few feet above the ground, their surfaces so dark they seemed to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. The crystal pulsed again. Assessment team has arrived, preparing for initial contact. The central vessel, slightly larger than the other 2, slowly descended until it touched the ground. A seam appeared in its seamless surface, widening into an opening from which a ramp extended. And then they emerged. 3 aliens, each with the same iridescent blue skin as Zulvex, but with subtle variations in height and coloration. They moved with an almost liquid grace, hovering just above the ground rather than walking. The tallest of the 3, whose skin had a slightly greenish tint, moved forward. Unlike Zulvex, this alien wore what appeared to be clothing, a form-fitting suit that seemed to shift colors with each movement. Around its neck was a device similar to Zulvex's translator, but more elegant in design. "Greetings, humans," it said, its voice rich and melodious without the mechanical flatness of Zulvex's translator. "I am Assessment Coordinator Vextral of the Galactic Consortium. We are here to conduct a re-evaluation of your species' technological potential." Donovan glanced at General Alexander, who nodded for him to take the lead. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "I'm Donovan Fisher. This is my farm where your observer's ship crashed 3 days ago. Welcome to Earth, I guess." The alien, Vextral, made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a nod. "The observer in question has been debriefed. His account of your repair capabilities prompted this unprecedented reassessment." "So, Zulvex made it back to your moon base okay?" Donovan asked, genuinely curious. "Observer designation Zulvex arrived at monitoring station Luna with a partially functioning vessel, yes." There was a hint of something like amusement in Vextral's voice. His report on your deliberately sabotaged communication array was particularly detailed. Donovan winced. "About that? Your strategic thinking was logical given the information available to you," Vextral interrupted. "No censure is indicated. Indeed, your actions have precipitated a rare event, the first full reassessment of a Category 7B species in over 3,000 standard cycles." "We appreciate the opportunity," General Alexander said, stepping forward. "I am General Diana Alexander, representing the United Earth Defense Coalition." Vextral's body shifted slightly, all 6 eyes focusing on the general. "United Earth Defense Coalition? Our records indicate no such global organization exists." The general smiled thinly. "We move quickly when motivated, Assessment Coordinator. Your arrival has accelerated certain political processes." It was a bluff, of course. The coalition had been hastily cobbled together on paper during the flight back to Donovan's farm, with representatives from a dozen nations being briefed even as Vextral spoke. But the alien didn't need to know that. "Interesting," Vextral said, its body rippling in what might have been approval. "Adaptive reorganization in response to external stimulus. This will be noted in the assessment." One of the other aliens moved forward, its skin a deeper blue with purple undertones. It extended what appeared to be a hand, though it had 7 digits rather than 5, each tipped with a small crystalline structure similar to the communication component Donovan had taken. "I am Technology Transfer Specialist Mex Lura," it said, its translator producing a slightly higher-pitched voice. "I will conduct the first phase of the assessment, determining your species' ability to comprehend and adapt consortium technology." Donovan nodded nervously. "So, like, a test?" "A series of practical challenges," Mex Lura corrected, "beginning with this." The alien's hand opened fully, revealing a small device that looked like a metallic egg. It pulsed with an inner light, similar to the crystal but more structured, with visible circuits running through its transparent sections. "This is a standard energy conversion module," Mex Lura explained. "It contains 3 primary components and 5 subsystems. You will disassemble it, identify the operational principles of each component, and then reassemble it into a functioning state." Donovan stared at the device. "Just me, or—" "Your species assessment requires multiple data points," Vextral interjected. "We will conduct simultaneous evaluations with different human subjects." As if on cue, the other alien moved forward, carrying a different device that resembled a translucent cube. "I am Biological Interface Analyst Renvox," it said in a surprisingly deep voice. "I will evaluate your species' neural plasticity and adaptive cognition." General Alexander gestured, and a team of scientists cautiously approached, led by Eliza. "These are some of our foremost experts in various scientific disciplines," she explained. "They will participate in your assessments." Vextral's body rippled again. "Acceptable. We will proceed." Mex Lura extended the egg-shaped device toward Donovan. "You will begin with the energy conversion module, as you have already demonstrated aptitude with similar technology." Donovan hesitantly took the device, which felt warm and seemed to vibrate slightly in his hand. "Do I get any tools, or—" "The module responds to directed intention and tactile manipulation," Mex Lura explained. "Tools are unnecessary." "Directed intention?" Donovan repeated skeptically. "You mean I just think at it?" Simplified, but essentially correct. Focus your attention on understanding its structure, and it will reveal itself to you. Donovan looked at Eliza, who gave him an encouraging nod despite the worry evident in her eyes. With a deep breath, he focused on the device in his hand, trying to clear his mind of everything else. Nothing happened. This isn't working, he muttered after a moment. Your neural patterns indicate resistance, Max Lura observed. You are attempting to force comprehension rather than allowing it to develop naturally. This is a common limitation in pre-integration species. Well, excuse me for not knowing how to telepathically communicate with a space egg, Donovan said, his nervousness making him sarcastic. To his surprise, Max Lura's body rippled in what might have been the alien equivalent of laughter. Your description is imprecise but not entirely inaccurate. The module is not telepathic, but it is designed to respond to neural patterns associated with curiosity and discovery. Simply put, approach it as you would any new technology. Observe, hypothesize, test. Donovan nodded slowly. That at least he understood. It was how he'd approached fixing machines his entire life. Looking more closely at the egg-shaped device, he noticed seams that hadn't been visible before. Subtle lines where different components joined together. I think I see how it comes apart, he said, carefully rotating the device in his hands. As he did, one of the seams widened slightly, as if responding to his observation. Yes, exactly, he murmured, more to himself than to the aliens. It wants to be understood. Gradually, as Donovan examined each part of the device with genuine curiosity, it began to open up. Components sliding apart smoothly to reveal an intricate inner structure of crystalline circuits and pulsing energy pathways. Fascinating, he breathed, temporarily forgetting his nervousness in the face of such beautiful technology. It's like each part knows its purpose and wants to show you how it works. Correct, Max Lura confirmed. Consortium technology is designed to be intuitive across species boundaries. The fact that you can perceive this suggests higher neural compatibility than your species classification would indicate. By now, Donovan had completely disassembled the device, its components arranged in a neat pattern hovering just above his palm. Each piece pulsed with its own rhythm, yet they seemed to maintain a harmonic relationship with each other. I think I understand, he said slowly. This central crystal is an energy source. These filaments distribute the energy, and these outer components, they convert the energy from one form to another. A simplified but accurate assessment, Max Lura acknowledged. Now reassemble the module into a functioning state. Donovan hesitated. The same way it was before? That is one option, the alien replied enigmatically. Something in Max Lura's tone made Donovan pause. One option, which meant there were others. Looking at the components again, he realized they could potentially fit together in multiple configurations. It's not just a test of whether I can put it back together, he said slowly. It's a test of whether I can see other possibilities. Max Lura's body rippled with what Donovan was beginning to recognize as approval. Perceptive. Proceed. Donovan studied the components, noting how the energy pathways could potentially connect in different patterns. On impulse, he rearranged them, placing the distribution filaments in a spiral pattern around the central crystal rather than the original radial configuration. As he did, the components began to move on their own, adjusting their positions slightly, as if drawn to their optimal placement. The pulsing of each piece synchronized, growing brighter and more intense, until suddenly they all snapped together into a new configuration, no longer an egg shape, but a complex geometric form that rotated slowly above his palm. Holy shit, he whispered. Did I do that right? Max Lura's eyes, all 6 of them, widened slightly. You have created a configuration with 78% higher efficiency than the original design. This is unexpected. From nearby, where Eliza and the other scientists were working with Renvox on the cube device, there came excited murmurs and the sound of equipment beeping rapidly. Similar results are being observed with the neural interface module, Vextral noted, its tone indicating surprise. The human subjects are demonstrating Category 4A level adaptability, not Category 7B. I told you your classification system wasn't giving us enough credit, Donovan said, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. Perhaps, Vextral conceded, but isolated examples do not constitute species-wide reassessment. We must conduct broader evaluations. As if on cue, the third vessel, which had remained sealed until now, opened to reveal what looked like a small army of floating spheres, each about the size of a baseball, and glowing with the same bluish light as the other devices. These are autonomous assessment units, Vextral explained. They will disperse globally to evaluate random human subjects for technological adaptability. General Alexander stepped forward, alarm evident in her posture.
Wait just a minute.
You can't send alien devices all over the world without authorization. The units are non-invasive and designed to be undetectable to your current sensor technology, Vextral replied calmly. They will gather data without interaction or interference. That's not the point, the general insisted. This is a violation of Earth sovereignty. Vextral's body shifted, and for the first time, Donovan sensed what might have been impatience. Your concept of planetary sovereignty is not recognized by consortium protocols. Earth is a pre-integration world subject to standard assessment procedures. And that right there is the problem, Donovan interjected before the general could respond. You keep treating us like we're just specimens to be studied and classified. But we're a sapient species with our own rights and civilization. All pre-integration species are sapient, Vextral replied. Sapience alone does not confer consortium recognition status. Then what does? Eliza asked, joining the conversation. She had left the other scientists still working with Renvox. What exactly do we need to demonstrate to be treated as equals rather than resources? Vextral was silent for a moment, its body shifting through several subtle color changes. Equality within the consortium is earned through technological advancement, civilization stability, and resource management efficiency. Species that cannot achieve these metrics independently are deemed unsuitable for self-determination. And who decides what suitable means? Donovan challenged. Who set up these rules in the first place? The founding species established the consortium parameters 50,000 standard cycles ago, Vextral explained. The system has ensured galactic stability and prevented resource wars that devastated earlier epochs. So it's for our own good, Donovan said sarcastically. Keeping us in our place so we don't mess up your tidy galaxy. Essentially correct, Vextral agreed, missing or ignoring the sarcasm. Pre-integration species left to develop without guidance historically achieve space travel before developing the wisdom to use it responsibly. The results are invariably catastrophic. General Alexander raised an eyebrow. And you know this how, exactly? By studying every species in the galaxy? By observing the ruins of civilizations that destroyed themselves, Vextral replied solemnly. The galaxy is littered with the remnants of species that achieved technological advancement without corresponding ethical evolution. That gave everyone pause. Donovan glanced at Eliza and the general, seeing his own unease reflected in their expressions. It was hard to argue with that kind of evidence. Okay, he said finally. I get the concept. But there's still something fundamentally wrong with deciding another species' fate without their knowledge or consent. If you're so advanced, why not just talk to us? Explain the situation. Offer guidance instead of secretly watching and judging. Direct contact with pre-integration species has historically led to cultural collapse or religious upheaval, Mexlura interjected. The consortium's non-interference protocols were established to prevent such disruptions. Yet here you are, Eliza pointed out, interfering quite directly. This is an exceptional circumstance, Vextral said, precipitated by an unexpected demonstration of technological intuition. You mean me fixing Zulvex's ship? Donovan translated. Correct. Observer Zulvex's report indicated potential classification error. Our presence here is to verify that possibility. The floating spheres had begun to move, drifting upward in a synchronized pattern that was both beautiful and slightly unnerving. Wait, Donovan said suddenly. Before you send those things all over the world, I have a proposal. Vextral's body shifted again. Specify. Instead of sneaking around testing random humans without their knowledge, why not give us a chance to prove ourselves on our terms? Let us assemble a team of our best and brightest, engineers, scientists, artists, philosophers, and present our case for reclassification directly to your consortium leadership. Unprecedented, Vextral said immediately. Pre-integration species do not address the consortium council. Then set a precedent, General Alexander said, picking up Donovan's thread. If you're truly as advanced and ethical as you claim, surely you can recognize that judging us without allowing us to speak for ourselves is fundamentally unjust. The three aliens conferred among themselves, using a series of rapid clicks and whistles that their translators didn't convert. Finally, Vextral turned back to the humans. Your proposal has merit, but exceeds our authorization parameters. We must consult with the Consortium Council. Fine, Donovan agreed. But in the meantime, no sneaky assessment spheres. Deal? Vextral's body rippled in what might have been resignation. The assessment units will remain contained until authorization is received. The spheres, which had been steadily rising, suddenly reversed direction and returned to the vessel they had emerged from. How long will this consultation take? The general asked. Council deliberation timelines are variable, Vextral replied. Estimated range between 1 and 14 of your Earth days. 2 weeks? Donovan exclaimed. You're just going to hover over my farm for 2 weeks while your bosses make up their minds? We will maintain geosynchronous orbit during the deliberation period, Vextral corrected. Surface presence is unnecessary and resource inefficient. Before anyone could respond, all 3 aliens began to glow with an intense blue light. Preliminary assessment data has been collected, Vextral announced. We will return when the Council has reached a decision. And with that, the aliens simply vanished. Not back into their vessels, but apparently teleported away entirely. The 3 black ships remained for a moment longer, hovering silently, before they too disappeared with a soft whoosh of displaced air. In their wake, a stunned silence fell over the assembled humans. Well, Donovan finally said, breaking the tension. That went actually better than I expected? Eliza laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to the sound. Better than expected. We just convinced an alien assessment team to put their planetary evaluation on hold while they consult with their leadership about our proposal to address their galactic council directly. I'd say that's slightly more than better than expected. General Alexander was already on her phone. We need to assemble a team immediately. The best minds from every field. Representatives from every nation. If we actually get a chance to plead our case to this consortium council, we need to be ready. As the general walked away, already deep in conversation with whoever was on the other end of the line, Donovan looked down at his hand. The reconfigured energy conversion module was still there, pulsing gently with its blue-white light. They left their technology, he said, surprised. Eliza nodded, holding up the cube device she and the other scientists had been working on. This one too. Either they forgot in their hurry to consult their superiors, or they left them deliberately, Donovan finished, to see what we do with them while they're gone. Still testing us, Eliza agreed. Which means the real assessment hasn't even started yet. Donovan looked up at the sky, where somewhere far above, 3 alien ships were presumably entering orbit. We've got 2 weeks to figure out how to convince an advanced alien civilization that humanity deserves to determine its own fate. Eliza followed his gaze. And if we fail? Donovan's hand closed around the alien device. Then I guess we prove them right about our category. The 2 weeks that followed were unlike anything in human history. Word of the alien encounter spread rapidly, despite initial attempts to keep it classified. When 3 massive ships suddenly appeared in orbit, visible to amateur astronomers worldwide, secrecy became impossible anyway. Governments around the world scrambled to respond, initially with panic and accusations, then gradually with an unprecedented level of cooperation as the full implications became clear. Humanity was being judged, and its future as an independent species hung in the balance. The United Earth Defense Coalition, initially just a hasty bluff, became a reality out of necessity. Representatives from every nation gathered in emergency sessions, setting aside long-standing conflicts in the face of this existential situation. It wasn't perfect. Centuries of geopolitical tension couldn't be erased overnight. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Donovan's farm had been transformed into the central hub of humanity's response. The modest farmhouse now hosted a rotating cast of the world's foremost scientists, engineers, and thinkers, all focused on understanding the alien technology left behind and preparing humanity's case for the Consortium Council. Donovan himself had become something of a reluctant celebrity, though he'd refused all interview requests and rarely left his workshop. He spent his days working with the energy conversion module, discovering new configurations and applications that even he hadn't thought possible. You're pushing yourself too hard, Eliza told him on the morning of the 14th day, finding him asleep at his workbench, the alien device still clutched in his hand. Donovan jerked awake, blinking away exhaustion. Can't afford to rest. They could come back any time now. Which is exactly why you need sleep, she insisted, placing a cup of coffee beside him. When they return, we need you at your best, not hallucinating from sleep deprivation. Donovan rubbed his eyes and accepted the coffee gratefully. Any word from our new alien overlords? Nothing yet. The ships are still in orbit, maintaining the same position they've held for 2 weeks. He nodded, taking a sip of coffee. And our preparation? How's that going? Eliza smiled slightly. The humanities team is still arguing about which philosophical traditions to emphasize in our presentation. The scientists have at least reached consensus on the technical aspects. And the engineers, well, they're still trying to reverse engineer that cube device. Any progress? Some. They've figured out it's some kind of data storage and processing system. But the interface is giving them trouble. It seems to require a specific type of neural pattern to activate fully. Donovan wasn't surprised. His own work with the energy module had revealed similar limitations. The technology responded to certain types of thinking better than others. Creative problem-solving seemed to work best, especially when approached with genuine curiosity rather than analytical force. "What about the General's diplomatic team?" he asked, still refining their approach. "It's not exactly like we have a protocol for addressing an alien council that's been judging us without our knowledge for centuries." Donovan set down his coffee cup and picked up the energy module, which had transformed yet again overnight. It now resembled a complex geometric web, each intersection pulsing with light in a synchronized pattern that seemed to respond to his thoughts. "I think I've figured something out," he said, turning the device carefully in his hands. "This thing isn't just an energy converter, it's a communicator of sorts. Not like the crystal, but more conceptual. It translates ideas into energy patterns." Eliza leaned closer, fascinated. "What kind of ideas?" "That's just it, any kind. Last night I was thinking about alternative energy systems for my tractor, and this thing reshaped itself to show me a configuration I never would have considered. It was like it pulled the solution right out of my subconscious." "That's incredible," Eliza breathed. "If we could understand how it works, we'd revolutionize how we approach problem solving," Donovan finished. "But I don't think that's what the consortium intended when they left it behind. I think it's a test, not just of our technical ability, but of what we do with the knowledge." Before Eliza could respond, the crystal communication device that had been sitting quietly on a nearby shelf suddenly pulsed with intense light. "Attention," the familiar voice announced. "Consortium Council deliberation complete. Assessment team returning to surface location for protocol notification." Donovan and Eliza exchanged alarmed glances. "They're coming back," Eliza said unnecessarily. "I'll alert the General." Within minutes, the farm was a flurry of activity as scientists, military personnel, and government officials scrambled into position. The diplomatic team that had been assembled, a carefully selected group representing diverse nations and fields of expertise, gathered in front of the barn, nervously reviewing their prepared statements. Donovan, still clutching the energy module, took his place among them. Despite having no diplomatic training or official position, everyone had agreed he should be front and center when the aliens returned. After all, he was the reason they were here in the first place. "Remember," General Alexander said, addressing the assembled team, "we stay united, we stay calm, and we present our case with dignity. These beings may be technologically advanced, but that doesn't make them morally superior. We have a right to self-determination, and we're going to make that clear." A murmur of agreement ran through the group, but it was quickly silenced as the air in front of them began to shimmer with that now familiar bluish light. This time, however, it wasn't just 3 vessels that appeared. The entire sky above the farm seemed to ripple and distort, and suddenly an enormous ship hung in the air, a massive silver-blue structure that dwarfed Donovan's entire property. It was shaped like a flattened disc, but with organic flowing lines that made it look almost alive. "That's not what I was expecting," Donovan muttered. From the underside of the massive vessel, a beam of light shot down, touching the ground directly in front of the assembled humans. Within this beam, figures began to materialize. First the now familiar forms of Vextral, Mexlura, and Renvox, but then others, different in appearance and bearing. In total, 7 aliens now stood before them. The 3 assessment team members were joined by 4 new beings, taller, their skin ranging from deep purple to a silvery white, each adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial garments that shifted colors with every movement. Vextral moved forward. "Humans of Earth, the Consortium Council has reached a decision regarding your proposal. In an unprecedented action, they have chosen to hear your case directly." A ripple of excitement ran through the human delegation. 4 members of the Council have traveled here personally to observe your species and evaluate your petition," Vextral continued. "This is an honor that has never before been granted to a Category 7B world." One of the new aliens, the tallest, with skin that shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue, stepped forward. "I am High Counselor Zor Magner," it announced, its translator producing a deep, resonant voice that seemed to vibrate in Donovan's chest. "These are my fellow council members. Technological Oversight Director Kelvana, Biological Integration Specialist Prinox, and Cultural Preservation Coordinator Des Terral." Each of the other new aliens inclined their upper bodies slightly as they were introduced. "We have reviewed the preliminary assessment data and your request for direct representation," Zor Magner continued. "This situation is without precedent in consortium history. A pre-integration species demanding the right to self-advocacy challenges fundamental consortium protocols established 50,000 cycles ago. With all due respect, Counselor, General Alexander stepped forward. Those protocols were established without our knowledge or consent. We're simply asking for the right to represent ourselves in decisions that affect our future. The counselor's body shifted color slightly. Your assertion presumes a right to self-determination that pre-integration species have not traditionally been granted. And who decided that tradition? Donovan asked, unable to contain himself. Who gave the consortium the right to categorize and judge other species without their input? Zormagnir's 6 eyes all focused on Donovan. You are the anomalous human who repaired Observer Zulvex's vessel. I am, Donovan confirmed, and I'm still waiting for an answer to my question. The alien regarded him for a long moment. The consortium's authority derives from 50,000 cycles of maintaining galactic stability and preventing the collapse of countless civilizations. Our protocols exist to protect developing species from their own premature advancement, or to keep them convenient and controlled until you're ready to use them, Donovan challenged. Your assessment team already told us Earth is classified as suitable for resource extraction. That doesn't sound like protection to me. Murmurs ran through both the human delegation and the alien counselors. One of the other council members, the one introduced as Cultural Preservation Coordinator Des Tural, moved forward, its silvery white skin pulsing with faint patterns of light. Your perception is understandable but incomplete, it said, its translator producing a softer, almost melodic voice. Resource extraction occurs only after full species integration, with equitable exchange protocols and technological uplift compensation. But still without our informed consent, one of the human diplomats pointed out. You've been deciding our fate for centuries without even introducing yourselves. The time for such introductions is determined by developmental readiness indicators, the biological integration specialist Prenox interjected. Its skin was a pale green that seemed to ripple like water with each movement. Premature contact has resulted in cultural collapse in 83% of documented cases. And yet here you are, Eliza pointed out, making contact anyway because one human fixed an alien ship. High Counselor Zormagnir's body shifted again, this time to a deeper purple. This situation is irregular. The assessment team's data indicates your species possesses technological intuition and adaptive capability far beyond your current implementation level. This discrepancy requires explanation. Maybe your classification system is flawed, Donovan suggested. Maybe measuring a species by its current technology doesn't tell you everything about its potential. An interesting hypothesis. The technological oversight director, Kelvana, spoke for the first time. Its skin was a burnished copper color, and its voice was precise and measured. But potential without implementation is meaningless in evolutionary terms. If humans possess greater capability than they demonstrate, the question becomes, why? This was the opening the human delegation had been waiting for. Dr. Rajiv Patel, a renowned anthropologist who had been chosen to lead this portion of their presentation, stepped forward. That question goes to the heart of what makes humanity unique, he began. Unlike species that develop linearly, humans progress in cycles, periods of rapid advancement followed by consolidation, reflection, and sometimes regression. Our history is not a straight line, but a complex web of cultural, social, and technological evolution that doesn't always prioritize the same metrics the consortium seems to value. The council members exchanged what appeared to be meaningful glances, though it was impossible to interpret their alien expressions. Elaborate, Zormagnir commanded. For the next hour, the human delegation presented their case. Anthropologists explained humanity's diverse approaches to problem-solving across cultures. Historians contextualized technological development within social and political frameworks. Engineers demonstrated innovative solutions using limited resources. Throughout it all, Donovan noticed that the energy module in his hands was shifting and changing, responding to the ideas being presented. It seemed to be learning, absorbing the concepts and reflecting them back in its ever-changing configuration. Finally, Dr. Patel concluded. The point is, counselors, that humanity's value can't be measured solely by our current technological implementation. Our potential lies in our diversity of thought, our adaptability, and our capacity for ethical and philosophical growth alongside technical advancement. The counselors conferred among themselves for several minutes, communicating in that rapid series of clicks and whistles that their translators didn't convert. Finally, Zormagnir turned back to address the humans. Your presentation is compelling, the High Counselor admitted. But words alone cannot alter classification protocols established over 50,000 cycles. Demonstrable evidence is required. What kind of evidence? General Alexander asked cautiously. A practical demonstration of your species' capability to utilize advanced technology responsibly, Kelvana explained. The assessment devices left in your possession provide an opportunity for such demonstration. All eyes turned to Donovan and the energy module he held, as well as to the cube device that one of the scientists was carrying. You left these behind deliberately, Donovan realized. This was part of the test all along. Correct, Vextral confirmed. The Council required objective data regarding your species' approach to unfamiliar technology. And have we passed your test? Eliza asked. Partially, Zormagnir said. Your research teams have shown impressive restraint and insight. Rather than attempting to weaponize the devices, you have focused on understanding their principles and potential applications. However, Prinox added, mere comprehension is insufficient. The final assessment requires demonstration of creative implementation. Donovan looked down at the energy module in his hands, which had now transformed into something entirely new. A complex, interwoven pattern of light and crystal that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. You want us to show you what we can do with your technology, he said slowly. To prove we can use it for something other than blowing each other up. Precisely, Zormagnir confirmed. Donovan exchanged glances with Eliza and the other scientists. They hadn't prepared for this specific challenge, but in a way, it was exactly what they had been working toward for the past 2 weeks. Give us a moment to confer, General Alexander requested. The counselors inclined their upper bodies in what appeared to be agreement, and the human delegation gathered in a tight circle a few yards away. Any ideas? The general asked in a low voice. We've been studying these devices for 2 weeks, one of the scientists said. We've learned a lot about how they work, but actually implementing something new with them? That's a tall order. Maybe we're overthinking this, Donovan suggested. They want to see creative implementation, right? So let's show them something uniquely human. Like what? Eliza asked. Donovan looked down at the energy module, then at the cube device. These things respond to thought patterns, not just analytical thinking, but creative, intuitive approaches. What if we combined them somehow? Showed how they could work together in a way their creators might not have considered? The scientists exchanged uncertain glances. It's risky, one of them said. We don't fully understand either device yet. But that's exactly the point, Eliza said, catching on to Donovan's thinking. They want to see if we can make intuitive leaps, not just follow established patterns. They want to see if we think differently than they do. After a brief but intense discussion, they reached a consensus. The human delegation returned to face the counselors, with Donovan and Eliza at the front, each holding one of the alien devices. Counselors, Donovan began, you've asked for a demonstration of creative implementation. We believe we can show you something that demonstrates humanity's unique approach to problem solving. Proceed, Zormagnir said, all 6 eyes focused intently on the humans. Donovan took a deep breath and turned to Eliza. Ready? She nodded, holding out the cube device. Donovan carefully positioned the energy module above it, the 2 devices nearly touching. From what we've learned, he explained to the counselors, the energy module converts thought into energy patterns, while the cube device stores and processes data. But we think they can do something more when used together, something that reflects how humans approach problems collaboratively rather than individually. With that, Donovan focused his attention on the energy module, thinking not of technical problems or energy conversion, but of human history. The long, complex journey that had brought their species from caves to space exploration. Beside him, Eliza concentrated on the cube, her thoughts focused on human potential, what they might become with the right guidance and opportunity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the 2 devices began to respond. The energy module's light patterns intensified, streaming downward to connect with the cube. The cube, in turn, began to project a 3-dimensional image into the air between the humans and aliens. A complex, shifting representation that began as a simple double helix, but rapidly evolved into something far more intricate. It was human history and potential rendered in light and energy, showing not just where they had been, but possible futures branching out in countless directions. Some paths led to destruction, others to stagnation, but many, so many, led to advancement and growth unlike anything Earth had yet achieved. This is us, Donovan said simply. Not just what we are now, but what we could become. Not limited by your categories or our current technology, but defined by our capacity to imagine and create new possibilities. The counselors watched in silence, their bodies shifting through various colors and patterns as the display continued to evolve. The projection grew more complex, showing how human creativity and innovation could potentially interface with consortium technology to create entirely new applications and solutions. Finally, the display faded, and the two devices separated, returning to their original states. A profound silence fell over the gathering. "Well," General Alexander finally asked, "does that satisfy your requirement for creative implementation?" High Counselor Zormagnir's body had settled into a deep blue color, unlike anything they had seen before. "What you have demonstrated is unprecedented. These devices were not designed to interface in this manner, nor to produce the type of conceptual visualization we have witnessed. The neural resonance patterns are entirely novel," Prinox added, its voice conveying what might have been excitement. "The human approach appears to bypass established operational parameters to create new functional possibilities." "Is that good or bad?" Donovan asked bluntly. The counselors exchanged another series of untranslated communications before Zormagnir responded. "It is neither good nor bad. It is significant. Your species has demonstrated a form of technological interaction that does not conform to established consortium categorization metrics. In other words," Eliza translated, "we don't fit neatly into your boxes." "A simplification, but essentially correct," Des Terral confirmed. "Human cognitive patterns appear to prioritize innovative recombination over optimized implementation, an approach rarely observed in species at your developmental stage. The question," Kelvana added, "is whether this trait represents an evolutionary advantage or a destabilizing factor that could threaten wider galactic stability." "Why not let us decide that for ourselves?" Donovan challenged. "Give us the chance to develop at our own pace, make our own mistakes, find our own way forward, without being secretly judged or categorized." High Counselor Zormagnir's body rippled in what might have been consideration. "Your proposal contradicts 50,000 cycles of established protocol." "Maybe it's time for a new protocol," General Alexander suggested. "One that recognizes the right of sapient species to self-determination. Such a fundamental shift would require full Consortium Council deliberation," Zormagnir said. "The implications extend far beyond Earth's classification status." "Then deliberate," Donovan said simply. "But while you're at it, consider this. A species that's achieved what we have without your guidance, despite being limited to one planet and our own resources, might have something valuable to offer the wider galactic community. Not as subjects or resources, but as partners." The energy module in his hand pulsed brightly, as if emphasizing his point. The cube device in Eliza's hands did the same, creating a momentary resonance between them that seemed to hang in the air like a visible question mark. High Counselor Zormagnir observed this phenomenon with obvious interest. "Your perspective will be considered. The Council will reconvene to discuss the implications of today's demonstrations and your petition for classification revision." "And in the meantime," General Alexander asked, "what's our status?" "Earth's classification will remain pending during deliberations," Zormagnir declared. "The observation post on your moon will continue its monitoring function, but all resource assessment protocols are suspended indefinitely." It wasn't exactly what they had hoped for, but it was progress. The human delegation exchanged cautiously optimistic glances. "One final matter requires resolution," Kelvana said, gesturing toward the devices Donovan and Eliza held. "The assessment technology must be returned to consortium custody." Donovan looked down at the energy module, which had become almost like an extension of himself over the past 2 weeks. The thought of giving it up was surprisingly difficult. "And if we want to keep studying them?" he asked. "To better understand the technology we might someday be working with as partners?" The counselors exchanged glances again, their bodies shifting through various colors. "Unprecedented," Prinox said, its translator conveying what sounded like disapproval. "But not explicitly prohibited," Des Terral countered. "The protocols regarding technology transfer to pre-integration species are ambiguous in cases of pending classification." After another brief conference, Zormagnir turned back to the humans. "A compromise is proposed. The devices may remain on Earth as a gesture of potential future cooperation, under strict usage protocols to be established and monitored by the observation team. Meaning Zulvex and his friends get to keep tabs on what we do with them," Donovan translated. "Observer Zulvex will serve as liaison between Earth and the consortium during the deliberation period," Vextral confirmed. "His experience with human technological intuition makes him uniquely qualified for this role." Donovan couldn't help but smile at that. "I bet he's thrilled about the assignment. His personal preferences are irrelevant to protocol implementation," Vex Trowel replied, though Donovan thought he detected a hint of amusement in the alien's tone. With that, the meeting began to wrap up. The counselors provided a formal acknowledgement of Earth's petition for reclassification and confirmed that deliberations would continue for an indeterminate period. The diplomatic team had dozens of questions about the process and next steps, which the aliens answered with varying degrees of specificity. Throughout it all, Donovan stood quietly, the energy module pulsing gently in his hand. He wasn't a diplomat or a scientist or a general, just a farmer who happened to be good at fixing things. Yet somehow, he'd ended up at the center of humanity's first real contact with an advanced alien civilization. As the counselors prepared to depart, Zor Magneer approached Donovan directly. "Human Donovan Fisher," the High Counselor said, "your actions have precipitated a potential paradigm shift in consortium protocols that have remained unchanged for 50,000 cycles." "Sorry about that," Donovan replied, not feeling sorry at all. "No apology is required. Adaptation is necessary for survival, a principle that applies to civilizations as well as species. Perhaps the consortium itself has categorical limitations that require reassessment." With that cryptic statement, the High Counselor rejoined the other aliens. In a shimmer of blue light, they ascended back into the massive vessel hovering above. Moments later, the ship itself seemed to fold inward, disappearing with nothing but a slight distortion in the air to mark its passing. Only Vex Trell remained, standing before the assembled humans like an awkward exchange student at a new school. "Observer Zulvex will arrive within 48 hours to begin his liaison duties," the alien announced. "Until then, I am instructed to remain as temporary representative." General Alexander nodded. "We'll make arrangements for your accommodation." As the group began to disperse, discussing next steps and implications, Donovan turned to Eliza. "So that's it? We just wait for their decision?" She smiled slightly. "What did you expect? An immediate invitation to join their club?" "I don't know what I expected," he admitted. "But it feels anticlimactic somehow. All that build-up and now we're just in limbo. Better limbo than dissection," she pointed out. "True." Donovan looked down at the energy module, which had settled into a gently pulsing geometric form that somehow felt optimistic. "I guess we'll have plenty to keep us busy while we wait." "Indeed," Vex Trell said, approaching them. "The technology you now possess represents merely the simplest implementation of consortium engineering principles. Your species' unusual approach to its application suggests significant collaborative potential." "Meaning what exactly?" Donovan asked. "Meaning," the alien replied, "that the coming days may prove more interesting than anticipated. Observer Zulvex has been instructed to provide limited technical guidance regarding the device's full capabilities." "Zulvex is going to teach us how to use alien tech?" Donovan couldn't help but laugh at the irony. "Considering I'm the one who fixed his ship, that should be interesting." "Perhaps you will teach each other," Vex Trell suggested, its body shifting to a color they hadn't seen before, a warm golden hue that seemed almost friendly. That would be a truly unprecedented outcome. 3 months later, Donovan stood in his barn, now converted into a state-of-the-art research facility, watching as Zulvex demonstrated a new configuration for the energy module. The conversion efficiency increases by 32% when the resonance patterns align with the planetary magnetic field, the alien explained, his translator now producing a much more natural-sounding voice. "Humans consistently overlook this aspect in favor of raw output metrics. Because we're still thinking in terms of our existing power grid," Donovan countered, adjusting the module slightly. "If we reconfigured along these lines instead..." He manipulated the device, causing it to shift into a new pattern. Zulvex's body rippled with what Donovan now recognized as surprise. "This configuration has not been documented in consortium technical archives." "That's because we just invented it," Eliza said proudly from her workstation nearby. She was interfacing the cube device with a standard Earth computer, creating a hybrid system that outperformed anything previously developed on either side. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of activity. While the Consortium Council continued its deliberations, Earth had been busy preparing for whatever came next. The discovery of alien observation had initially caused panic and conspiracy theories worldwide, but the transparent approach adopted by the newly formalized United Earth Coalition had helped maintain relative stability. Zulvex had proven to be an unexpectedly valuable ally in this process. As the official liaison between Earth and the Consortium, he had provided crucial context and information that helped humans understand their place in the galactic community, while also reporting back to his superiors about humanity's rapid progress with the provided technology. "The Council session is scheduled to reconvene tomorrow," Zulvex announced, setting aside the energy module. Your petition for reclassification will be the primary agenda item. Donovan looked up from his work. Any inside information on which way they're leaning? Consortium deliberations are confidential even to liaison personnel, Zulvex replied, though his body shifted to a color that Donovan had come to associate with amusement. However, I can confirm that the data I have submitted regarding human consortium technological collaboration has generated significant interest. Interest good or interest bad? Eliza asked. That distinction is meaningless in consortium evaluation protocols, Zulvex said, which Donovan had learned was his way of saying he didn't know. The communication crystal, which had been installed in a proper mounting on the wall of the barn, suddenly pulsed with light. Incoming transmission from Consortium Central, it announced. Priority Alpha, recipient, Liaison Officer Zulvex. Zulvex's body shifted rapidly through several colors that Donovan couldn't interpret. Unexpected, the alien murmured. Priority Alpha designations are reserved for Council-level communications. He moved to the crystal and placed all 4 of his hands on its surface. The crystal's light intensified, and Zulvex went completely still for several moments, his body cycling through a rainbow of colors faster than Donovan had ever seen. Finally, the alien stepped back, his color settling into a deep, rich blue that seemed to glow from within. The Council has reached a decision, he announced. Donovan and Eliza exchanged tense glances. And? Donovan prompted when Zulvex didn't continue. Earth's classification has been officially revised, Zulvex said, his translator somehow conveying a sense of awe. You have been designated Category 3A, High Adaptive Potential, suitable for accelerated integration. Is that good? Donovan asked cautiously. It is unprecedented, Zulvex replied. No species in consortium history has ever been elevated 4 classification levels in a single assessment cycle. Category 3A worlds are considered advanced enough for limited technology sharing and cultural exchange programs. Eliza's eyes widened. You mean we're being invited to join the galactic community? For real? Not quite, Zulvex clarified. Full integration requires additional development benchmarks. However, Earth is now recognized as a sovereign entity with negotiation rights, rather than a resource development candidate. So we've gone from future slaves to potential partners, Donovan translated. I'll take it. Your characterization is imprecise but not entirely inaccurate, Zulvex acknowledged, his body shifting to that golden hue that indicated approval or satisfaction. More significantly, the Council has also announced a comprehensive review of the entire classification system in light of the Earth anomaly, as they are calling it. The what now? Donovan asked. The discovery that a species can develop unconventional cognitive approaches that bypass traditional developmental metrics has forced a reassessment of fundamental consortium protocols, Zulvex explained. High Counselor Zor Magnier has proposed the formation of a new division specifically focused on identifying and cultivating creative potential in previously overlooked species. All because I fixed your ship, Donovan said, shaking his head in disbelief. All because you challenged assumptions that had remained unchallenged for 50,000 cycles, Zulvex corrected. Your simple act of mechanical intuition may ultimately transform how the consortium interacts with thousands of developing worlds. Eliza laughed. So in the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't our technology or our culture or our philosophy. It was our knack for improvising with whatever's at hand. Precisely, Zulvex agreed. The consortium has encountered many species more technologically advanced than humans, but few with your particular combination of innovative thinking and stubborn persistence. Donovan smiled, looking around at the transformed barn where he'd first encountered an alien ship just a few months ago. So what happens now? Now, Zulvex said, his body shifting to a new color, a vibrant purple that Donovan had never seen before. We begin the real work. The Council has authorized me to establish a permanent liaison office on Earth with expanded technology exchange protocols and cultural integration planning. Meaning, Eliza prompted, meaning that I am to assemble a team of both consortium specialists and human experts to develop the framework for Earth's gradual introduction to the wider galactic community, and I am authorized to offer both of you positions on this team. Donovan blinked in surprise. Us? Why us? You, Donovan Fisher, because your unique approach to consortium technology continues to produce unexpected innovations. And Dr. Wells, because her ability to translate between human and consortium scientific paradigms has proven invaluable. Eliza was practically bouncing with excitement. So we'd be working officially for the consortium? Not for the consortium, Zolvex corrected. With the consortium, as equals. That distinction is a direct result of your new classification status. Donovan looked down at the energy module, which had reshaped itself once again into something new and beautiful. A complex, interwoven pattern that somehow reminded him of Earth and stars and possibility. I'm just a farmer who's good at fixing things, he said quietly. Perhaps, Zolvex agreed, his body glowing that warm golden color again. But sometimes, fixing one thing leads to improving everything else. I believe humans have a term for this concept, serendipity. Serendipity, Donovan repeated, smiling. Yeah, I guess that about covers it. Outside the barn, the setting sun cast long shadows across the cornfield where a strange ship had crash-landed just a few months ago. The field was different now. Parts of it had been converted into landing pads for official delegations. Other sections housed temporary research facilities. But at its edges, new corn was growing, planted by Donovan himself, who insisted on maintaining at least some semblance of his former life. After all, no matter how far humanity might go among the stars, they'd always need to remember where they came from. So, he said, turning back to Zolvex with a grin. When do we start? The alien's body rippled with what Donovan now recognized as genuine pleasure. We already have. The end.